Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Mind-Boggling Concepts in the Torah. Tonight we have Parsha Korach, very exciting stuff. As per usual, please put down any sharp objects and don't get too close to the camera. We don't want to spread any of those diseases. So tonight is a mind-boggling Parsha, absolutely. And most of what I'm going to say is based on is really the Devar Torah of Noach itself, who explains the Parsha beautifully. So you have a very strange thing, and don't let me forget, the beginning and end is phenomenal this week, as opposed to as every week. So Korach comes and he makes a tremendous claim. Now. I'm going to get to Rav Noach's bull in a minute, but there's an interesting theory of history written by Toynbee, and I think he was English. So he has a very interesting theory of civilization that he says every nation either remains in just nothing, or it rises and then falls. But no nation ever rose and fell and rose again.
No nation rose, fell, and rose again. Oh,
right.
Okay.
Right. And
except for Israel.
Right. Rabbi Breitowitz says that this is the reason he was such an anti-Semite, because he worked on this theory for a long time, and he came to realize that the Jews are an exception. And he was pretty annoyed because it's just theory. So how do they explain that? I mean, even the people who are not buying into the theory, nevertheless, it's an interesting phenomena. That here you have, for instance, as Israel's being attacked on 7 fronts, right? And we come out victorious.
Yeah, because of God.
I know that, you know that, right? But the CNN doesn't know that. So,
it's mind-boggling when you really think about it, that this tiny little nation is victorious. I mean, nobody bothers to say, how could this possibly be? Like,
how could this possibly
it's so
be?
mind-boggling. It's what other little nation has this much?
Right. Right. I mean, 2 years ago, year and a half ago, we were looking at death and destruction. I mean, there were many pundits, even in Israel, that were going, this is going to be devastating, we're going to be in so much trouble, etc., etc., etc. And here you come out at the end of it, and it's like, oh my goodness, what happened here? Right? So, you have to wonder, how is it possible that the Jews, they're still around? These are the same. So one of the theories is it's not the same people. In other words,
I'm sorry, that was just too funny.
I know, it's stupid and stupid, but nevertheless, this is how the theory goes. So you like to think of yourself as you're the great granddaughter of Abraham, because it's nice, it's cute. Right?
Aren't many of us?
What's that?
Aren't many of us the great grandchild of Abraham? I would say like 90+% of the world's population comes from him.
No, not 90%. No.
Really? Look, China, India.
They're not
from Ketoras. No, from Ketoras.
There is a theory like that, but that doesn't mean everyone's descended from them.
Okay, fair enough.
Right, but even if they are, they don't claim it.
Good point. Right? Except for Yishmael.
But I don't think every Arab seriously claims that he's a direct descendant of Abraham and Sarah, or Abraham and Hagar. Right. The Arabs that might claim it, but he doesn't know himself personally where he's from. But when you say I'm a Jew, you say your great grandmother was Sarah Imenu, right? That's a phenomenal thing. I mean, you go to your next door neighbor who's Irish Catholic, or the other side that's, Protestant or Muslim or Hindu or anything, and you ask him, go back 5 generations, practically impossible. Practically impossible. Even the kings and queens of England can only go back a very short distance. It's not very far. Maybe they go 500 years, right? And then it gets very fuzzy. Right? But here you're going back 3,500 years, 4,000 years. Mind-boggling. So they go, it's just romanticism that you could do such a thing, because no other people can do it. No one else can do it. Right? Why do the non-Jews hate us so much? Because when you say you're a Protestant, or when you say you're a Muslim, what you're really saying is, I'm a Muslim because the Muhammad came into my little village of Zoroastrians and said, you have a choice. Everybody's got a choice, right? So you got a choice. What's the choice? You can be dead or a Muslim, right? Oh, they went into, if you're a Christian, the same thing. You can be dead or a Christian, right? They came into the Jewish village and they said the same thing. And the Jews said, no way. And a lot of us died, and some of us lived to tell the story. So when you say you're a Jew, what you're really saying is, I didn't give up and you did. And they know that, and they hate that. How come you're still around? Because when they say Jew, like the most ignorant non-Jew in the planet, when they say Jew, they know you're coming out of the Pesach story and Abraham's story and Joseph's story and Egypt's story, King David's story. They've heard of these stories, and these are ancient stories. The best you can get in England is King Arthur and the Round Table, and no one knows if it's really true or not. So they hate that you stand for something, and so the theory is that that's just romanticizing. That you're really not descended from father, son, mother, daughter, right? But really the Jews died out like every other people, and a new group came along and said, we're the new Jews. Obviously, a silly, who would want to be called a Jew?
Right, here's a target.
Yeah, here's a target, right? Like, why would anyone want to do that? And just because you call yourself a Jew doesn't mean you're going to be take the most Nobel prizes of any minority in the world. It's just silly, but nevertheless, this is how the theory goes. So if you wanna prove that you are a direct descendant of Abraham, how would you go about doing it?
Well, that's a good question. A lot of people do this like DNA testing.
DNA testing, right? So you go to the Cave of Machpelah, you dig it up, start World War IV, right? Another World War. We just went to World War III. You start another war, right? And take a little DNA out of Abraham, right? And then link it up. Although they can say you can do it with this 23andMe or whatever it is, you can do it without having to go through that. All the Jews are linked. It's a special DNA. But that's one of the ways you go about doing it. But the truth of the matter is, this week's Parsha gives you the clue. And that is, you see, there's certain behavioral patterns, certain consistencies that every nation has, right? So you go to France, they like eating French bread and escargot. Why? I don't know. But you go to England, where they like having tea in the afternoon. Right? You go to Belgium, they like chocolates. Right? You go to Germany, they like invading Poland. Right? Every nation has its thing that it does. This is what this nation does. You follow? So a Jew thinks that his opinion is as good as anybody else. This is
Okay.
this is a quality of all Jews. Right? No one can tell you my opinion isn't worth anything. There's no such thing by a Jew. And that's what Korach says to Moshe. He says, we're all holy. What gives you the right to rule over us? Everyone's, what do you mean we're all holy? Everyone's got a connection to the Holy One, to God. We're all entitled to our opinion. That's such a Jewish idea.
That's what he was saying, that we're all entitled to our opinion.
That's
I
right.
mean, really, like God chose Moshe. What's your problem?
Yes, but nothing personal, but I've got an opinion too. God's got an opinion. I've got an opinion. And we've all
That's
got an
nice.
opinion.
God's opinion is the only one that counts.
No, that's true. But nevertheless, I've got something to say. I'd like to, this is how Jews think.
Oh, is that the reason why Moshe argued with Hashem until Hashem said, enough arguing, let's go?
Right, same thing, right? Is that God says something, and then Moshe says, "Well, I don't necessarily agree with that."
It sounds so funny when you say it that way.
I know it sounds funny, but this is what it means to be a Jew. That's what Korach says. The other thing that's fascinating is that America is built on three classic Jewish ideas, and one of them is in this week's Parsha. Right, the three ideas the Talmud says is that you go through the streets of England and you go up to a leading professor at Cambridge University and you say to him, there might not be a cure for cancer. Who says there's a cure? Right, you understand? And chances are he'll say, you may be right. Right? That is antithetical to America. No American.
They have no concept in America of, I can't do it, or it's impossible.
It can't be done. There's no such thing. We may not know how to do it. Right? It might take another generation, but there's no such thing. Right? This is a statement in the Talmud. This is a statement in the Talmud that before God sends the disease, he sends the cure.
Oh, so Americans figure that one out.
I don't know if they figured it out. I mean, the founding fathers of America were big Bible scholars.
Uh-huh.
And they knew their Bible.
Yeah.
They knew their Bible, and so they knew biblical ideas and Torah ideas. It wouldn't have surprised me if they studied the Talmud or read the Talmud at least. But they were Puritans. Mm-hmm. There was a report that they wanted to make Hebrew the official language of America.
Huh?
Right?
Really?
Yeah. I mean, the commencement speeches of if not all, but most of the Ivy League universities were given in Hebrew. The beginning of Plymouth Rock was in Hebrew.
That's fascinating. Can you imagine if that continued?
Hebrew was considered the the Latin of enlightenment, the pure language. Even till today, Yale's emblem motto is a phrase from the Torah, Urim v'Tumim. Most people at Yale don't know what it means.
That's a little arrogant, Urim v'Tumim.
Yes, it's true. It's true. But nevertheless, is that you ask the average Christian today what Urim v'Tumim means, they wouldn't have a clue. Right? So the people who put that in, they knew what it meant. That's fascinating. So it's a core understanding. The insight comes through God. That's what it means. But anyway, so the second idea is the separation of church and state. That's a classic Jewish idea, classic Torah idea. And that's what Korach's argument was. That there's no way that God would have picked the king. Moshe was effectively the king of Israel. And the Kohen Gadol, it is very interesting because the Torah, the governmental system of the functioning of a state according to the Torah is a tremendous amount of separation of powers. You have the court system, which is spread out throughout the whole country, and this is a power center that owes no allegiance to the king. It's independent of the king. Very similar way that the founding fathers set up the judicial system in America. Then you have the king, right, like the president, right, and then you had the kahuna, the priesthood, and these were independent bodies that often had friction between them because the agenda each one had its own function and purpose and goal, and it didn't necessarily coincide with the other two. So it was a rough road. So the Torah understood you need the separation of powers. You can't have all power in one hand. And so, for instance,
But it wasn't. I don't understand Korach's argument because it wasn't in one hand. Moshe was not both king and Kohen Gadol and has the what else is there? And the Sanhedrin.
Yeah, right. But he is the head of the Sanhedrin.
Okay, so he's the head of the Sanhedrin in this specific case. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
But he's not the Kohen Gadol. It's his brother.
But that's the same argument that when John F. Kennedy appointed his brother Robert Kennedy as the head of the Attorney General, that was the cry that they all said, like, this is not a separation of church and state. This is not separation of powers, right? And that's one of the great things of America. The separation of church and state. Now, people misunderstand it. They think the job of the state is to eliminate the church. No, you need a strong church, and you need a strong state because one will stand up against the other. Right? It's a very healthy thing. Right? We see that at the end of Bereshis that Yosef established the church, even the non-Jewish church, as a force to be reckoned with. And his reasoning was that when they come after the Jews, it's the non-Jewish priests who are going to defend them.
And did they? It didn't seem like they did.
They did, because they tried to enslave the tribe of Levi. The tribe of Levi are the priests. So when they did that, the non-Jewish priests stepped forward and said, "No, you can't do that. We have independent priesthood," and the reason being that they knew that there's a lot of antipathy to their side of the coin, their movement too. And once you go after the Jews, it's a very similar thing that Obama was not happy with Fox News. So at one point in the press meeting, the press conference that they had, they disinvited Fox News, and all of the media outlets protested
because they'd be next.
Because like, today it's Fox News and tomorrow it's CNN. But we all have to stand up for each other. Right? It's a bit incestuous there, like that. Well, incestuous, whatever. But anyway.
So I have a question. Okay, yeah. So he's saying basically that Moshe's family is getting everything, but then the rest of Israel can say, "Hey, the Leviim are getting all the important positions. This is not right." So how does his argument?
That's true, but the king doesn't have to be a Levi. In fact, the king's not supposed to be a Levi. King's not supposed to be a Kohen, I should say. That was the problem with the Hashmonaim. They were Kohanim.
Right.
So that Korach's argument is that God wouldn't have picked Aaron, the church, and the state, Moshe, to be brothers.
How does he know what God would or would not do?
Because he's Kodesh. We're all entitled to our opinion. We covered that in the first point.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so what does he do? He comes in with 250 people. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now that's already a bad sign. And this is what Rav Nach used to. This is Rav Nach's fault on this whole story here, which is phenomenal. So he comes in with 250 people, which is a bad move, because you don't come to the Gadol Hador, the king, whoever it is, the power, with 250 people if you're intending to be reasonable.
Right, because you're like sort of declaring war.
You're declaring war, right? It's a question of force, right? It's the same thing that's going on in America. They have these protests. They do the same thing in Israel, unfortunately. They have these protests, and you get 10,000 people, 100,000 people. Like it means anything. Like we have a democracy, right? 30 million people voted for Kamala, right? But they lost. So now you get 30 million people that protest. Okay, what does that mean? So everybody else has got to protest in the opposite. Like everything has got to be decided by how many people. It's just false. This is how you're going to make decisions. Like if the other side wants whatever they want, they get more people that show up and demonstrate and burn down cars. Right? Really, this is ridiculous. Right? It's absurd. Right? You should really use the force of your argument. You have many mouthpieces, and today it's overwhelming the ability to spread a message or tell a message. Right? If your argument is sound, use the media, the platforms you have, to express your opinion. And if it holds water, it will carry weight and spread.
So did he not think that his argument would carry weight, and that's the reason why he needed all these people to shore him up?
That's exactly right. You don't bring 250 people to a party, to a meeting, unless you're not trying to be reasonable.
Okay, can we back up for a second, because now I'm starting to like lose the points, because yeah, you're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to get what you want, when you want it, and how you want it. Essentially, he's saying, me and my opinion and 250 of my followers are going to be taking on God.
That's right.
Are you crazy? Like,
okay, so that's what
on God, you're gonna lose.
That's what the Chazal say. Like, are you crazy? Right? So what was Korach thinking?
What was he thinking? Because that makes no sense.
So so Korach, right? He somehow understood or knew or saw through Nevuah or whatever it happens to be. There's some theories about whatever it is, but nevertheless, Korach saw that one of his descendants are going to be singing in the Beis Hamikdash. Shmuel Hanavi is going to come out of Korach.
So what? This is not a secular nation that believes in aristocracy and you know, things go from person to person. This is a nation that's about, okay, you develop your character and you grow and you can be big. It has nothing to do with your yichus.
Well, there's a lot of weight to that. But first of all, you should understand that Shmuel was equal to Moshe and Aaron combined.
Wow.
So he said, you know, it can't be that someone so great will come out of me and I go down the tubes.
How is he going down the tubes? He has a nice job. His family's responsible for the Aron.
No, but he's going to go down the tube. He's going to die.
Oh, that's what you mean. Oh, so sorry. The heat is still.
The point he missed was his children did tshuva.
Oh, because his kids were with him. So,
Right.
Oh, I get it now.
Yeah. Hot. It's hot. Not as hot as Korach's going to feel. So what happened? He comes and says, who says that Aaron is supposed to be the Kohen Gadol? So Moshe says, okay, we'll have a test, a little experiment, right? Everybody bring their fire pan, the incense, right? Now we've seen this before. Where did we see this?
Nadav and Avihu.
Nadav and Avihu, very good. And what happened to them? It wasn't pretty.
Well, fire came and went in through their nostrils and burned them to a crisp within the inside.
Right, they died, right? And everybody knew that. This is one of those things, like everybody knew, you stick your fingers in the socket, it's not going to look nice.
As you're saying this, I'm like, wait a minute. Why is there one thing after another, after another, after another? Like, what's going on here? Is there like a lot of spiritual energy that they're not using properly, so it's coming out in a negative way?
Well, that's a very good question. And you really save that question for Bilam. Bilam is the bookends of all of this.
Okay, if I remember, B'ezrat Hashem.
And Bilam says, "No and Avon Yaakov." God doesn't see any wrongdoing in Yaakov. Bilam's looking at all of this. He sees the spies. He sees the Egel Azav. He sees it all, right? And he declares that God doesn't see any wrongdoing in Yaakov.
That's beautiful.
It is.
That's like your kids. My kids are just great. It was a mistake. They didn't mean it.
Well, I wouldn't say they didn't mean it. What I would say is that it's like riding a bicycle. You can't ride the bike. By the way, I sent you the new copy. Did you see it?
I didn't have a chance to open it, but I did notice that there was an email.
Yes, the book's there. It's the second email. The first one, the second one is the right. You'll see it.
Okay.
So, but in there, I talk about this idea a lot, that it's like riding a bicycle. You can't ride a bicycle. Everybody gets on a bicycle for the first time thinks they know how to ride the bicycle.
Right.
You only realize you don't know how to ride the bicycle when you fall off.
Right.
It's not possible to ride a bicycle by someone telling you how to ride a bicycle. You can't read a book on it. You can't watch a video on it. There's no YouTube channel, right? You have to be prepared to fall off. Everything, and this is a paradigm for everything in life. Everything in life of any impulse, of any meaning, is only achieved through falling off.
So that's what's happening here.
That's
is
what's
that
happening.
They're making mistakes so that they learn from it.
Right. It was in a slow process. This is what the desert's all about. We're in a slow process. Don't get caught up with, oh my goodness, this is the end of the world. Remember, there are two things you can't mess up.
Yourself
and your kids.
And your kids.
Right? It's all a process of growth, of learning, and that process is messy. Right?
Yeah.
It's the way it is, right? I just saw a video about it's called the anglerfish. The anglerfish, it sits in the water, obviously it's a fish, and it shoots out water, spurts of water to knock off flies on a plant outside of the water. So the diffraction, it has to adjust for the diffraction, all kinds of different things, right? And it has 100% track record. Like every time it shoots, it gets its target. It never misses.
That's impressive.
That's pretty good, right? You understand? There's no such thing of that kind of behavior in a human being. There is nothing we do that we do right the first time we do it, or every time afterwards. other than scratching our head.
Yeah.
Right? So human beings are made to fall. That's how we are. We're made to mess up. So this is all a process of growing, of learning. We should have done it in Egypt, but Egypt, which was the womb, we were born early. Right? So when you have a baby that comes out of the womb early, there's lots of health issues. You've got to accommodate for, you have to put them in a heat lamp, and you have to feed them special stuff, and you have to accommodate for the lack of the lacking that they were supposed to get in the womb. So anyway, getting back to Korach. So Korach comes and says, so Moshe says, bring this fire pan. Everybody knows what the fire pan, this is a dangerous thing.
So why do they go at this point? I mean, the 250, right? They must have like some reservations at this point. Like, fire pans. We've seen this one before. How come people don't go? I don't think I'm gonna. See you later.
There were the unborn pellets comes to this realization, but most of them don't.
Oh, come on! If he wasn't married, he'd be dead too.
That's right. His wife saved him. Right, 100%. So, but what was Korach's mistake? He thought that it can't be small enough. It's going to come out of me, and we're all going to die. He's standing there with his children.
Right.
So that was his mistake. That's how he knew he was wrong, but he thought because of that, right? He would. It must be he's going to somehow survive, which we'll get to. Hang on a sec.
So we do this a lot, right? We do this. We do this a lot, don't we? We're like, well, such and such proves that I am right and I'm doing the right thing, and and then we get other people in on it because look, I can prove it. Look, it says right over here. I mean,
Right, exactly. So what happens? Moshe comes and he says like this. A fantastic thing. If you want to look it up, it's chapter 16, verse 28. Moses says this is how we prove that I am right and you are wrong. So he says like this: if you die the death of normal men, then God did not send me. But if an entirely new miracle happens, which the Chazal say was one of the greatest miracles, on par with the splitting of the Red Sea, which is the earth opens up its mouth and swallows them alive, then I am right and you are wrong.
Right.
You follow?
Yeah.
Now, that might sound like this. If I am right and you're wrong, then you pay. And if you are right and I am wrong, then I pay. But it's not.
It doesn't sound like that. No, that doesn't sound like that. That's all it sounds like is, how does he say it? If they die, like he's saying, either way they're gonna die. The question is, how are they gonna die?
He doesn't mean if you die at 120 years old, then you're right and I'm wrong. He's saying if you drop dead by the normal means of somebody who brings a fire pan offering, then you were really right.
This is mind-boggling. And they still went through it knowing that or those were the only two choices: either die because you have the fire pan, you're not supposed to have it, or die in this unusual, grotesque manner.
Right. Now, did Moshe know that he was right?
If he's saying this, he must.
He must. So if I know I'm right, like playing poker. Now, I don't know how to play poker, but some basics I've got. So if I'm holding a phenomenal hand, right, I'm going to bet you up a very high amount because I know I can win. I know I've got to win.
Exactly.
Right? So Moshe's holding a phenomenal hand. I don't know what is it, world flush. I don't know what the best hand is. Whatever it is, right? So if he's holding a phenomenal hand, why doesn't he say, listen, if I die and you live, then you were right. And if you die and I live, then I was right.
Because he's not interested per se on being right. He's interested in the truth. So he's trying to save them by saying, listen, you are going to die, period, because you started this up. Either you're going to die like this or in this grotesque manner, but you're going to die. So either stop with the argument or die. Choose one of these ways of death.
Well, right, exactly, right? And that's exactly his point, right? Either you're going to die because you're wrong, right? I did not choose the Kohen Gadol. Right? It was God who wanted it. See, their argument was like this. Yes, we know that God chose Aaron, right? But why did he choose Aaron? Because you asked him to choose Aaron. You're Moshe. You're his best buddy. Right?
So Hashem would do this for you because you asked him.
Exactly. Right. But if you asked it differently, who's really the best person for the job, then it wouldn't be Aaron. It'll be somebody else. So Moshe's point is saying, well, if you're right, then you'll just die a normal death as somebody who brings the Ketoris. But if you're wrong, you'll be unusual. Right? Why will you die a normal death like that? Because, like you said, you don't argue to the God of the door like that, to the king like that. You come in, you sit down, like, I think I have an issue, I don't understand. Why is it the Kohen Gadol? Why? You understand? Moshe will explain it to you. That's the way to do it. They don't want to do it that way. Right? You understand?
Oh,
so what happened?
Means I've been very disrespectful many times.
Right? So what happened? Right? The earth opened up his mouth and swallowed him alive. What does that prove?
That they were wrong about Hashem choosing Aaron because Moshe said so. Moshe asked so.
I mean, it's clear as day.
Right?
Well, except for the fact that the next day they get up and they say, you killed, it's chapter 17, verse 6, right? You killed God's people.
Yeah.
Seriously? Like, what do they think Moshe did? Like, he dug subterranean channels underneath the earth, and at the right moment, he's detonated a dynamite, and they all fell in? Seriously?
What were they upset about exactly? They knew what the machlokis was, so what are they upset about?
What are they upset about? So Rav Noach explained. He said, this is what they're excited about. You set it up like this. If we die a normal death, right, we're wrong because of not because of the point, but because of the way we did it. Right? And if they die an unusual death, then they're wrong in the point.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
They're wrong on one of two ways or just one way.
Right.
Either they're wrong because you don't argue like that, or you're wrong because Moshe did not ask God to pick Aaron. You're wrong on the point. If you're wrong on the point, the earth is going to swallow you up alive. Before that was the argument.
Right. So why is the assembly getting upset? They knew what would happen. They knew this. It was already told. Moshe already said very clearly.
Right. So you see what their argument was like this. We understand that if you die because you bought a fire pan, you die that way. You shouldn't bring a fire pan. We already saw that now in the video. We understand that. You follow? But dying by the earth swallowing you up alive because you're wrong on the point, like, you don't die because you're wrong on a point. I think it's kosher. You think it's treif, right? Okay, well, if the earth swallows you up alive, then you're wrong. You don't die because you're wrong.
Yes, you do. Nadav and Avihu were wrong to bring the fire pans. Nobody asked them to.
That's true. That was the wrong thing to do. But this was an argument. This was,
If it was an argument, then why bring 250 men?
So that they deserve to die by the kataris, by the normal death of someone who brings the kataris, right? But Moshe didn't say that. He said, if you're wrong in the point, then you're going to die this unusual death. God doesn't kill you because you made a mistake in the logic, because you didn't understand the Tosfos.
If that's true, then they wouldn't have died.
What's that?
If that's true, then they wouldn't have died. So there's something deeper here.
They wouldn't have died that way.
Right. Oh, right. They wouldn't have died that way. Oh, that's the argument. I don't know. I'm so slow. This past week, so slow. So
That's
you're saying that to them, the unusual death was too strange because they would have expected just what happened to Nadav and Avihu regarding the point.
That's right. Why did they die this unusual death?
Because of two reasons: the point and the way that they approached him.
The point and the way they approached them. You follow?
Right. So if it was just the point, then this unusual thing wouldn't have happened. But because of the way they approached him.
Right. But you see, their argument is you don't die for just making a mistake. So we understand why they died. But what they're saying is they died because they ticked you off.
No, they ticked off God in the same way that Hashem got upset when they did the Egel. Why don't they connect it to that then?
No, what they connected to is with Miriam. When God got upset with Miriam, what did Moshe do?
He prayed for her.
So he said the same thing.
Why didn't you pray for him? Could he have prayed for him? Would it have made a difference?
He did pray for the people. We're going to see that in a minute, right? Because after this, more people die, and God and Moshe prays for the people, but nevertheless, they said, right, when it was your sister, you prayed for her to not die, to cure her. When it was Korach, your cousin, you prayed that the earth open up its mouth and swallow him up alive. If you had prayed for his forgiveness and let him off the hook, he would have lived. So you killed him.
Do they really have an argument here? I mean, it doesn't sound right to me.
Why?
Because, if the mother of the king says something and makes a mistake, that's one thing. Sort of the same thing as the sister of the king,
No,
but
it's completely different. Miriam wasn't trying to usurp the power for herself.
She was trying to look out for her sister-in-law. It came from an over-compassionate nature.
Right. It's a completely different thing. But nevertheless, that's how they saw it.
Oh, that's how they viewed it? They didn't view Korach as trying to usurp Moshe's power and sort of rebel against him.
He was a little, remember, Korach is an amazing personality. He's not like some, schmo bagel on the side, driving you crazy with his Devar Torahs that no one wants to listen to, right? He's a very well-respected person, has a lot of personality. He can convince 250 heads of the Sanhedrin to come follow him. Right? Yeah, these were no small fry. They were leaders of the people. So everyone knew. He went to every tribe. They all bought into him.
Yeah. That's scary. If people of such high statures can make such a humongous mistake, that's terrifying.
It's a great lesson that you should, don't get caught up with leaders who are infallible.
Don't get caught up in any kind of machlokas is what I have learned through very, very painful experience. And I try to stay out of the machlokas.
That's true.
But
Right, we learn that from here too. Moshe went out of his way to try and appease them. He bows down to the ground. He goes chasing them. He says whatever he can do, but they were not interested. But nevertheless, like Korach is like a phenomenal personality. Shmuel and Navi comes out of him, not for good reason. He's not a small fry. In fact, Matis Weinberg, he quotes the Arizal, who says that Sadik Katamar Yifrach, a Sadik is like it's King David. Sadik Katamar, a Sadik is like a date palm that blooms. The last word, the last letters of those three words spell Korach.
Really?
Sadik, Kuf, Tamar, Reish, Yifrach, Chet. Kaf, sorry. Right? Chet, no, Chet. I got it right the first time. Right? Sadik in my right, and Sadik, right? Who's the Sadik? Korach. So they were very enamored with him. He came across as an Anuf, as I mean, when you read it in the way we read it, he comes out as an idiot, but he's no idiot. Rashi himself says he was a pekuch. He was a genius.
Yeah, but there's still that flaw that his anava was not real. It was fake. It was superficial because he wanted more.
Well, we're going to get to that in a minute, but nevertheless, so people were rather ticked. They were not happy that he died.
But did they know that Moshe tried to appease him? He tried to
but he didn't. He didn't daven to God that he should forgive him.
But is that Moshe's job in this case? Because
it is, and because they say that 14,700 people die.
Wow, that's a painful lesson.
That's a painful lesson. So what happens? God comes and he says, listen, let me take care of this, okay? Now you think that would be it, but it isn't. So he says to the Jewish people, he says, listen, this is what you need to do. Every tribe bring their staff, right? And you put it in the Mishkan, you put it in the oil, and whoever's staff blooms flowers, that's the one I'm going to pick. Right, you follow?
Yeah.
So they all put 12 stars. They write their names on the staff. Next morning they come back. Aaron's staff is blooming with leaves and buds and almonds.
It would have been nice to have had this from the beginning, no?
Oh, so that's what Doc said. He said, why did they do that in the first place?
Why didn't they do that? You know what? They probably would have gotten this if he had approached Moshe as a regular argument. Then Hashem would have done this.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Right. But that wasn't the way. So we already covered that. That wasn't his agenda. He wasn't out for being reasonable. So
had he been, though, this is what would have happened, right? This would have happened from the get-go.
Right.
Ah.
So Noach, he tells one of his favorite jokes. He says, the guy sells another guy a donkey. So donkeys have a reputation for being stubborn. So he says, this donkey, I know it is an expensive donkey. And the reason it's expensive is this donkey has been raised, parents, children, generations and generations to be amiable.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is tell it what you want, it'll do it. So that's just what I'm looking for. I'm so fed up with these stubborn donkeys. They don't move. It's impossible. So he pays him good money, brings the donkey home. Right? A few days later, he calls the guy up and says, you're a Gamif. He says, what do you mean? He says, the donkey doesn't do anything. It's the same as every other donkey. I can't get it to budge. That's ridiculous. You must be doing it wrong. Right? It's like calling customer support. So he comes over and he says, listen, show me how you do it. He says, look, I said, donkey, move. He says, that's not how you do it. Right? Look, this is how you do it. He picks up a big stick and he goes whack, whack, whack on the back of the donkey. And then he says, move. And the donkey moves. So the guy says, that's the same as every other donkey. Right? Says, what are you talking about? No, it isn't. So if it isn't, why'd you hit the donkey if it wasn't going to move because you didn't hit it? He says that he didn't move because I hit it. So then why'd you hit it? He says, that's just to get his attention.
That was the purpose of this whole thing?
Yes.
Was to teach them this lesson about how to approach properly?
Oh, that's true. That's true. So you see, right, by the time they went through 250 dead, right, 12,000, how many was it? 12,700, I think it was.
Yeah, 14,000.
14,700, right? Then, okay, let's be reasonable, right? So Rav Nah, he says, you see from here that the Jewish people were not a slave mentality. A slave mentality is, the earth opened up, 14,700, whatever you say, boss, right? They're just mindless, right? Here, 250 people die, and they go, you did it. What are you crazy? What are you doing? We're starting up with Moshe. 250 people dead. Whatever he says is fine. 14,700, no, we're still not convinced. You follow? So Rav Nah says a fantastic point. This is very powerful. That if you're not listening, the earth can open up in front of you and it won't change your mind. 14,700 people can drop dead outside your front door. It won't change your mind. But if you're listening, all you need is a little flour on the end of a stick.
Wow. Wow. So it's like, pay attention to what God's trying to say. Look for the signs. Look for the communication.
That's it.
I
Okay.
recently had this.
What's that?
I recently had this.
Yeah.
Someone pushed me and I ended up crying, and I thought about this. I'm like, oh, why did I cry? If I had forgiven, then I wouldn't have been like, the person couldn't have pushed me and I wouldn't have ended up crying. So I had to like go in and dig deep and like really work it all out. And it was hard. It was hard, but I wouldn't have listened to anybody else except this person. Only this person could have pushed me because of things that happened before that.
Very good.
So I knew that it was coming from God and that I needed to go through this process and like forgive completely instead of thinking that I already forgave.
Very good. Very good. So the Parsha begins in it. I said right at the beginning and the end. The Parsha begins with taking.
Vayikach, yes.
And it ends with taking.
Let's see.
Truma.
The produce. Like you're saying, the flour. First you get the flour and then the produce comes.
Oh, that's very good. But that's not the taking I was thinking of. The end of the Parsha is the truma that you give to the Leviim.
Yeah.
The kat truma. They take truma. The word truma means to rise up, to lift up. There's a kind of taking that is korach, that is obsessive and selfish. And then there's the kind of taking that is meaningful and holy. That's the Levium. What's the difference between the two? So the Mesilas Yesharim, he brings down the midrash that says, our job in life, we enter this world empty-handed, and our job is to leave this world holding something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He brings the midrash that says that this world is like the land, and the next world is like the sea. So I've now said, which would you rather be on, the land or the sea?
Well, if the next world is the sea, don't you want to be there?
That's true, but if you had a choice, which would you rather be, the land or the sea?
I don't know.
You'd rather be on the land. So why are you going on the sea?
You're taking a trip.
What's that?
You're taking a trip.
We are. We're going to take a trip. We're going to go. The next world is like the ocean. We're going to. The Almighty is going to give it. The Almighty gives us a big boat in this world. And our job is to fill it. What are you going to put in it? Imagine you're going to go for the rest of your life on an ocean cruise, but the ship that you're going to use is completely empty. And it's your job for the next 70 years, 80 years, 120 years to fill it. What are you going to put in it? And whatever you put in it, that's what you're going to have for the rest of your life. What are you going to put in it?
All the things that matter, meaningful pursuits, meaningful relationships.
That's right. Take your friends, take your family, take your learning, take your brachas, take your simchas, everything you follow. That's what you take with you in the next world. All those things. That's
right.
what we take. Right? Korach, our job is to take. Korach wanted to take too. Everybody wants to come away with something meaningful, something important, right? When Korach is standing there offering his kataras with 250 people, he knew full well they're all going to die, even his children.
Really? Oh my gosh, I'm having another, you're causing brain bombs again.
he thought he would live, but he knew it was only going to be one person.
So he thought that Moshe would die or Aaron would die?
He thought Aaron would die, but all the 250 people would die.
And he had no problem, wow.
Now, did those 250 people think that he thought about them that way?
Probably not, because again, false anava.
He's comes across as the nicest guy, sweetest, right? Giving and dedicated and humble, everything. You couldn't tell, right?
Rabbi, this is exactly what we learned in that Mesilat Yesharim class. I've watched it at least twice now, about false humility, and that's the worst kind of person. That's why the earth had to open up, because we can't have such a person living amongst us and teaching us the wrong way to care. That's right.
What's the taking at the end of the parsha? Truma. That the Levi is not allowed. Levi does not have land. He doesn't have a farm. How does he get truma? He goes to the farmer. The farmer has to give 10% of what he raises or reaps to the Levi. Right? He goes to the farmer and says, "I'd like my truma, please." And what does the farmer say?
Here you go.
No, go take a hike.
Really? He does say that?
He can give it to whoever he wants. He has to give it to a Levi, but it doesn't have to be this Levi. The Levi has no right to it.
You mean he's not saying take a hike about doing it. He's saying take a hike specifically to this person.
Right. I don't like you.
Right.
What's going to make him give it to this Levi?
If he really cares and he shows that he cares.
That's right.
Oh.
If you really care, you'll walk away with a lot. What's this like? Being a mummy.
So true.
I don't want to dismiss daddies, but you see, they're all mothers. I've met them, right? Who only want to take their Korach. They don't care about their children. They don't care about their spouses. They don't care about anybody. They only want to take, and they drive their children crazy because they want them to give to them. It's very dysfunctional, but I've met them.
It's actually very sad. It's very, very sad. So she's never grown up, and now she's supposed to take care of kids, and she's forcing them to take care of her instead of the opposite way around.
Because they look at the real Levi, the real mother, and they go, "I want that too." The problem is they don't love people. When you love your children, it's easy to give. They don't love the farmer. Korach only had antipathy to these people. They were tools, they were puppets, they were just things to use to get his point to Moshe. Didn't care about them.
And that's what owns, is that his name?
On Ben Pellet.
On Bepel. That's what his wife's argument was. She said, "What's it to you? It's
What's it
between
to you?"
these two. You're not going to get anything from it."
Right.
She knew. Oh, she's a mommy.
Right. Exactly.
Wow. I'm going to have to listen to this one again. This was amazing. You know, it's so strange. Our youngest child recently, I don't know how the conversation came up. I don't remember the details, but he said something so profound. And I'm like, wow.
You have to share it now.
He said, so, oh, I know what it was. So I've been trying to convince him to do camp or something, and he's not interested. So I said, okay, you know what? How about you be my personal assistant like last year? And I'm like, because of my brain fog, I don't really remember what you did last year, but I know that it was helpful. I just can't remember what it was specifically. And so he said, oh, remember I helped you clear off your desk? It was such a mess, and there was like so many things on top of it. I'm like, oh, wow, you're right. That's amazing. You see, you haven't helped me all this year, so now it's a big mess again. And that was really important what you did. Thank you. And he's like, well, I'm not important just because I did that for you. And I like pause and I'm like, huh? And then I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm not important just because of the things that I do. I'm important just because I'm important. I'm like, you're right. I didn't even have to teach you that. That's amazing that you know that all by yourself. And he said something else now. I can't remember what it was exactly, but it was something about like, if somebody wants to be your friend just because of what you can do for them, then that's not really love. Something like that. I'm like, wow. How can you understand this so well at this age? I don't know what I understood at that age.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. That's a
Where
total
did you get it from?
They pick it up and they get it from you. They get it from the schools, they get it from the environment, they get it from the shows, they get it from learning Torah.
So there's definitely something in this generation. There really is. Like I can't put my finger on it, but there's something big going on with them.
Praise God. Hopefully. Hope you're
It's
right.
coming, Rabbi. It's coming. I feel it. Thank you very much. This was amazing as usual.
Thank you.
Have a good night.